and welcome back to the channel. Today I'm creating my first monthly bullet journal setup for 2024, and if you haven't seen the yearly setup for 2024 yet, I'll have the link in the description so you can go check it out. So for my January theme, I decided to do these frozen flowers, and as I was creating this theme, I realized that last January I created frozen roses and in 2021 frozen leaves, so it seems to be some sort of recurring theme for January. Anyway, I started this setup from the cover page, where I first outlined a rectangular area using washi tape, and then I colored the entire area with this violet blue Tombow brush pen. I rarely color the backgrounds of my drawings, but this time I wanted the flowers to be white, so this way I made them stand out a bit better from the background. I used the white Acrylograph pen to draw the flowers and applied a couple of layers to make them really white, and after that I drew the stems of the flowers with this dark blue Calliograph pen. I drew two types of flowers throughout this setup to add some variation, and I didn't necessarily try to draw any specific flowers, but the larger ones kinda look like poppies, and the others remind me of some kind of wildflowers. Once the white parts had dried enough, I added details and some shadows to the flower petals with a grey Tombow pen to make them stand out a bit better, and also added some blue and blended it using the grey Tombow pen. To add a bit more vibrant color to these blue shades, I used a bright turquoise for some details on the flowers. Finally, I wrote January with a dark blue Acrylograph pen and added a few dots here and there to fill the empty space above the flowers. On the page next to this cover page, I decided to have a goals page for the first quarter, so for January, February and March. And this is actually a new thing I wanted to try out this year. Usually I set goals for the entire year, and I also have my monthly goals each month, but I decided to also add these quarterly goals to track my progress more closely towards the annual goals. I divided these goals into 4 sections, so personal goals, health goals, creative goals, and financial goals. And these are the same categories I have in my goals for the whole year. I might also add some kind of a review page at the end of March, just to assess the progress I've made. Next we are flipping to the calendar page, which has remained quite unchanged throughout the past year. This time I made the calendar a bit bigger, so that the boxes are 5 dot grid spaces tall and 4 dot grid spaces wide. And I drew the calendar going across this spread with days from Monday to Wednesday on the left page and the days from Thursday to Sunday on the right page. I used the same pen to draw the grid as the one used for the background on the cover page. And above the grid I drew 7 circles where I write down the first letter of the weekdays with a white gel pen. This circle header style is similar as on the previous spread, and if you want to keep your spreads cohesive, one way is to use the same font throughout the setup. but that's definitely not something you have to do if you want to experiment with different font styles. One of my goals for my bullet journal this year is to create more simple and quicker setups because they can easily consume a lot of time, and creating detailed drawings and decorating every single page can become overwhelming. One way to achieve this is to focus more on the titles and colors instead of drawings, and this is definitely something that I'm trying to do this year. On the left side of the calendar grid, I created a header and decided to do a similar decoration as on the cover page. This time I made the background circular and wrote January in the center of the drawing, but otherwise I used the same technique as on the cover page. The next thing I added to this monthly planning spread is my weekly plan section. I use this section to plan for different weekly household chores, and I also put all my video plans here. I drew these simple boxes with a black fine liner, and I made sure to align them with the corresponding week. And then I added the week numbers inside these circles on the left edge of this section. Above the boxes, I wrote a title, and below the calendar, I created space for my monthly goals. So before the start of January, I will be setting up my goals for the entire year, the first quarter, and also the first month. So there will be a lot of goal setting. But I believe breaking down the goals into smaller parts in this way is going to be very useful. One last thing I added was 2 little boxes. So the first one is for my monthly tasks, and the second one is for planning for February. On the next page, I created again my schedule for January, which I use for planning my days. I started by writing the title at the top of the page, and then I created the actual schedule under it. This schedule has 5 columns, so this is going to be only for the weekdays because I usually don't like to plan my weekends too much. The height of this box is 16 dot grid spaces, so that I was able to fit the hours from 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. with each row representing 1 hour in my schedule. If you need to, you could also divide your schedule into half-hour blocks, but this layout has been working for me. I like to use color blocking in this schedule, so under this schedule I created a color code for things like work, hobbies, and chores. Next to this schedule, I created my habit tracker, and I divided it again into 2 parts. The top part of this page is going to be for my daily habits, and in the bottom part I'll have my weekly habits. So for January, I chose 6 habits that I want to do daily, and I created individual boxes for each using the blue Tombow pen. I used gray as the background color for the headers and the dark blue Acrylograph pen for the days of the week. I didn't really decorate this spread with any doodles. I just used the same color palette and varied with the different fonts and pens. Finally, I added all the habits on the gray background, and my daily habits for January are eating healthy, doing my morning routine, bullet journaling in the evening, doing chores, checking expenses, and not scrolling with my phone. Under these boxes, I created a small space for my weekly habits, and while I was editing this video, I realized that I actually forgot to write them down on this page. But my weekly habits are going to be painting, doing a budget check, then I have going outdoors at least twice a week, and lastly doing a weekly reset, which includes things like creating a new weekly spread and planning for the next week. We are moving on to my monthly financial spread, And in my 2024 yearly setup, I also created some yearly pages. So if you like to see some trackers for yearly savings and yearly financial overview spread, go check them out in that video. But in this spread, I first created a small section for my monthly money goals, and I like to keep these goals on my finance pages since they often have something to do with savings or budgeting things. And next to this goals section, I also like to have a small tracker for my savings. So in this one, I can see the amount saved at the beginning and end of the month. Under these sections, I have my remaining budget tracker. And I began by writing the title and then created a large box with one row for the headers of each column, and then under it 17 rows for each of my different expense categories. The first 8 categories are needs and the rest are wants. And every month I always set a budget for all of these 17 categories. I also like to divide each month into 4 parts. So each part has 7 or 8 days in them. And after each time period, I write down the remaining budget for each category in this tracker. I hope this explanation makes sense, and if it doesn't, please leave me a comment and I'll try to explain this better. One last thing I added on this page is this more visual tracker for my grocery budget and the entire wants category budget. In this tracker, I'll draw a horizontal line that represents the percentage of the budget used for each of these 2 categories after each time period. I'm also going to be drawing the lines in different colors to separate the weeks better. In addition to these budget pages, I created an expense tracker where I write down all my expenses for the month. I transfer these expenses to my digital budget once a week while doing my budget check, and I use it to fill in the remaining budget tracker on the previous page. Since the expense tracker will be filled with texts, I only did a simple table layout and again made 2 columns for the expenses, descriptions, and dates. The last page I included in this setup is of course the first weekly spread for the first week of January. When I'm setting up my monthly spreads, I usually only create the first weekly spread because I think it's more fun to spend a bit of time creating these pages every week, and also I'm able to adjust the pages according to the upcoming week. Also, creating all the pages at once would be quite time consuming, so I just like to do it this way. I began this spread by drawing a similar decoration in the top left corner as on the cover page, but I made it a bit smaller. So I outlined an area with washi tape, colored it in with a blue Tombow marker, and then started drawing the flowers with a white Acrylograph pen. Although the decorations may look quite detailed at first, they are actually pretty simple when you just keep adding details and layers bit by bit. And if I create more detailed decorations and drawings like these ones, I often balance the theme by making fewer drawings and keeping other elements more simple. After I was done with this drawing, I added the header and the week number under it, and then I created very simple daily sections. I used the blue Tombow pen to draw a background for each day's title and a dark blue Acrylograph pen to write the days and the numbers. I also like to include a weekly to-do list in my weekly layouts for tasks that I haven't scheduled for any specific day, so I added it to the bottom right corner of this spread. This video is going to be the last one I'll be uploading in 2023, so I want to take a moment to thank both old and new viewers for your support and lovely comments. This year has been so amazing in many ways, but also there obviously have been challenges, and returning to making videos after a 6-month break wasn't easy, but I just want to say thank you for your kindness and encouragement. I'm so excited to start a new year with my bullet journal, and I'm curious to see what 2024 will bring. Happy New Year to everyone! Thank you for watching, and I will see you next year. Bye!